Namo Vaha. My name is Shubha. I am a native Sanskrit speaker and a Sanskrit teacher, and this channel Tattvam is all about Sanskrit related content. So if you are interested in Sanskrit related content, then please do subscribe to Tattvam. This video is a part of the Varnamala series where I teach how to pronounce Sanskrit sounds correctly and also give some fascinating facts and in-depth information about the Sanskritam sounds. In this video, I will be discussing about the Visarga. Visarga is nothing but the two dots that you see at the end of many words in Sanskritam, and sometimes they appear even inside a word also. I have already made a video on the correct pronunciation of the Visarga. Here is the link. You can watch it if you have not yet watched it. In this video, I will be discussing about the various forms that the Visarga can take. As usual, I will be referring to the Paniniya Shiksha. The 14th verse in the Paniniya Shiksha goes like this. O bhavascha vivrittischa shasha sarepha evacha jihva moolamuppadmacha gatirashta vidhoshmanah. The verse says gatirashta vidhoshmanah. Ushma means Visarga, and it can take 8 different forms. Ashta gatis are there for the Ushma. In this verse, the original pronunciation of the Visarga is not mentioned. If you take its original pronunciation also into account, then totally 9 different forms of Visarga will be there. I have made a separate video on the pronunciation of the Visarga. I will give the link in the description also. In this video, we will discuss the 8 other forms that it can take. Some modifications of the Visarga are based on Sandhi rules, and if I start explaining them here, you will start feeling dizzy. So whenever the rules are simple, I will explain. Others, I will just mention. It will definitely give you a lot of clarity about the Visarga. If you look at the first word of the verse, it says O bhavah, which means the Visarga can become O. Let me show this with an example. If you take these two words, Rama Rajamani, it can become Ramo Rajamani. I will show you a verse from the Vishnusahasranama where you can see Visarga becoming O. Take the very first shloka from the Vishnusahasranama. Vishvam Vishnurva Shatkaro Bhuta Bhavya Bhavat Prabhu Bhuta Krit Bhuta Bhridbhavo Bhutatma Bhuta Bhavanah. Here the second word is actually Vishnur Vashatkarah. The Visarga has become O here. Also in the second line, the first word is actually Bhuta Krit Bhuta Bhridbhavah. Again here Visarga has become O. I will not tell when the Visarga is becoming O because it follows some Sandhi rules which will make things complicated for a beginner. So just understand that Visarga becomes O sometime. Next form that a Visarga can take is Vivritti. When Visarga appears between two swaras, swara is vowel. So when Visarga appears between two vowels, then the Visarga becomes Lopa, that is, the Visarga disappears. For example, Rama Ayati becomes Rama Ayati. Now let us look into the second verse from the Vishnu Sahasranama. It goes like this. Putatma Paramatma cha Muktanam Paramagati Avyayaf Purushas Sakshi Kshetragnokshara Evacha. If you see in the second line, Kshetragnokshara evacha. Here it is actually Kshetragnokshara eva. In Akshara, in the Ra, there is a. After that the Visarga is there. And after the Visarga, there is another vowel, A. Since the Visarga is between two vowels, it becomes Lopa, meaning it disappears. Third form of Visarga is Shakaraha. If Visarga is followed by Ch, Ch or Sh, then in the place of Visarga, Sh comes. For example, Rama chinoti becomes Ramash chinoti. Let us look into the 4th and 5th verse of Vishnusahasranama, where you will find this modification of the Visarga. Yogo yoga vidam neta pradhana purusheshwarah narasimha vapushriman keshavav purushottamah. In the second line, narasimha vapuh and shriman, when recited together, will be read like this: narasimha vapushriman. If you notice, I said vapushriman instead of saying vapuh shriman. The visarga became shu here because it is followed by a shu sound. Shri is nothing but shu plus r plus e. Since the immediate sound after the visarga is shu, the visarga gets modified into shu. Now let us see the 4th verse. Sarvasharvashivasthanur bhutadirnidhiravyayah sambhavo bhavano bharta prabhavav prabhurishwara. Here again, in the first row, when we read them continuously, we read it as Sarvasharvashivah, because immediately after the visarga and the word sarva, there is shakara. Also, immediately after the visarga in sharva, there is shakara in the word shivaha. So, when we read this continuously, we read it as sarva sharva shiva. 4th form of visarga is shakara. I have made a separate video on the difference between this sh and this sh. If you want more clarity on that, please watch this video. If after the visarga there is t, th or sh, then the visarga becomes sh. I could not find any verse from the Vishnusahasranama which has this particular kind of modification of the visarga. So I will give some individual examples. For example, Dayamana Tittibha will be Dayamanash Tittibha when read together, because the visarga in the word Dayamana is followed by t sound. Dayamana means flying, Tittibha is a kind of a bird. Another example is Dhanuh Thankate, when read together becomes Dhanush Thankate, because the visarga in Dhanuh is followed by t sound. Dhanuh means a bow and Thankate means it makes that sound when the bow is string is pulled and released. The sound that it makes is Thankate. Another example is Harih plus Shashtaha becomes Harish Shashtaha. Here the visarga changes to sh because it is followed by sh. 5th form of visarga is sakara. If after visarga there is t, th or s sound, then the visarga becomes s. For example, santah tarati, when read together becomes santas tarati. There are many examples of this kind of modification of the visarga in the Vishnusahasranama. Let us take this verse. Sadgatis satkritis satta sadbhutis satparayana shuraseno yadushreshthas sannivasas suyamuna. When we read the first line continuously, we read it like this. Sadgatis satkritis satta sadbhutis satparayana. Since the visarga in the first word sadgati is followed by sa, the visarga changes into s sound. Similarly, the visarga in satkriti is followed by s sound. So here also the visarga changes into s. And the visarga in sadbhuti is followed by sa in satparayana. So again the visarga changes into s. 6th form is repha. Repha means the letter r. I am not going to explain when visarga will change into r because it will get a bit complicated if I do it. I will show some examples. Harih gacchati becomes harir gacchati. Now let us look into some verses from the Vishnusahasranama which has this kind of modification of the Visarga. Take this 13th verse. Rudro bahushira babhrur vishvayo nishuchishravah amritashashvatasthanur vararoho mahatapah. The third word in this verse, babhrur vishvayone, is actually babhruh vishvayone. Here the Visarga got modified into repha, that is the r sound, and when joined it became babhrur vishvayone. In the second line also we find this kind of modification of the Visarga. This word shashvatasthanur vararoho is actually shashvatasthanuh vararoho. Again here the Visarga changed into r sound. Seventh form is jihvamuliyam. If after the Visarga there is k or k, then we have to pronounce the Visarga as h. For example, Ramah karoti is pronounced as Ramah karoti. Now let us take the 32nd verse from the Vishnusahasranama. Bhuta bhavya bhavannathah pavanah pavano nalah kamaha kamakritkantah kamah kamapradah prabhuh. The second line when read continuously will be read like this. Kamaha kamakritkantah kamah kamapradah prabhuh. The Visarga is modified into h sound. There is no letter to write this sound. It is generally indicated with this symbol in front of the letter k or k. Eighth form is upadhmaniyam. If after the Visarga there is p, then Visarga is pronounced as f. For example, vriksha phalati is read as vriksha phalati. You can also read it as vriksha phalati, but when you read it together it is read as vriksha phalati. Now let us look into the 35th verse of Vishnusahasranama. Achyutah prathitah pranah pranado vasavanujah apam nidhiradhishthanam apramattah pratisthitah. If you have noticed, when I read the first line continuously, I read it as Achyutah prathitah pranah pranado vasavanujah, because after the Visarga the p sound is there. So the Visarga is pronounced as f. Now that we have seen the 8 different modifications of the Visarga, I will quickly summarize what are the 8 different modifications Visarga undergoes. They are O or lopa getting dropped, sh, sh, s, r, jihvamuliya and upadhmaniyam. I hope this video was useful. If it was, then please give it a like. Let me know about what you felt about this video in the comments, and also please share it with interested people. And if you haven't yet subscribed to Tattvam, please do subscribe and click the bell icon. Agrima video madhye punarmilami. Namo Namah.